I wonder why the state and the county government hasn't figured out that it would be easier for them to give vaccine to senior citizens by coming to us instead of us having to come to them. They could spend a couple of days in each one throughout Fulton County, and all those senior citizens that wanted the vaccine could get it. I have neighbors that are in their 70s. They don't own computers. They don't own smartphones. But they want everybody to go online and get an appointment. I mean, the grocery stores, the doing it, Publix, Kroger, the drug stores, Walgreens, CVS, Walmart. You gotta go to a website, get an appointment to get the vaccine. It'd be easier for them to come to us.
I say that's not necessary in Florida. And forging enough cooperation with Republicans in Washington to deliver on his ambitious agenda.
It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy, unity.
But President Biden's call to dial down the temperature of political disagreements may quickly face its limits when it comes to policy consensus.
President Biden sounded a lot of notes of unity in his inaugural address, but unfortunately, when he got back to the White House, he implemented a bunch of far-left policies.
Republicans and Democrats can't even agree on ground rules for running the Senate, especially whether to keep the filibuster.
Then I cannot imagine the Democratic leader would rather hold up the power-sharing agreement than simply reaffirm that his side won't be breaking this standing rule of the Senate.
Leader McConnell's proposal is unacceptable, and it won't be accepted.
Biden economic advisor Brian Deese is scheduled to brief a bipartisan group of senators in a call today to push Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan. And while President Biden urges Congress to tackle his priorities quickly,
The more time we have to get up and running and meet these crises, the better.
a Senate impeachment trial
Presentation by the parties will commence the week of February the 8th.
may make it harder to both change the tone and delay passage of his agenda.
It's unconstitutional. It sets a bad precedent for the presidency, and it continues to divide the nation.
I don't think it's very unifying to say, oh, let's just forget it and move on.
Well, joining me now is President Biden's Chief of Staff, Ron Klain.
Our economy has been damaged and is struggling. The rescue package that President Biden has sent to us is one of the highest importance and a sense of urgency. So I hope we can really roll up our sleeves and get that done in that period of time that you've mentioned.
What is
Going to reach out in a respectful way to the Republicans and to the Democrats to get something done. I know Joe Biden. I served with him and Kamala Harris. They know how to pass legislation by working in a respectful way, constructive way with Republicans who want to help us get America moving again. I heard that loud and clear, and that's what I think Joe Biden won the election on November 3rd.
all right, Senator?
Recognizing that there are different points of view about how we move forward with regard to the pandemic. And I think we all want to have the same goal of eliminating this pandemic as quickly as we can, but what's the right philosophy? Second of all, it's with regard to how we move things through the Senate. Are we prepared to actually take and to look at both sides and what's the best of both? Can we sit down and actually work together on issues? Infrastructure is one area where we may very well be able to work together on things, but let's test it and let's find out whether or not we can actually come to a consensus that will last long term, not just for 1 or 2 years.
I want to ask you specifically about the COVID relief bill, the $1.9 trillion here. And I'm wondering if you believe that, look, the election has consequences. If Joe Biden won by 7 million votes. Is that a mandate? Should that not be considered a mandate to go in his direction on COVID, at least for a period of time? Does he not get some benefit of the doubt in your mind, or no?
I really don't think we're that far off with regard to the direction for COVID relief, specifically in targeted areas. I think we all want to make sure that we properly funded the availability of vaccines, a good plan for getting it out in all states. And in South Dakota, one of the biggest challenges we've got is knowing in advance how many we're going to get per week. But as soon as we get it here, we're getting it out. Those are the types of things. I think we're going to find ourselves in agreement with a number of different areas there. The real challenge is whether or not Democrats are prepared to perhaps release some of the items that are not specifically targeted to COVID relief. You know, and the one, Chuck, you brought it up earlier, minimum wage development. When I was a governor, I actually looked at it here in South Dakota. When I was in the South Dakota legislature, I actually voted for it. But that doesn't mean that I did it without putting together consensus on it. And if you're going to talk about an emergency operation, why would you then include and demand that that be a part of it? I think that's just looking for a way not to get some things done that might very well have to be done in the next couple of weeks.
Well, let me ask you.
But, you know, my view is Biden has to do bipartisanship. His whole campaign was built on unity. If he doesn't do that, he makes his campaign a lie. So he has to try it. And I'm reasonably optimistic they can do it. Every Republican I talk to says, hey, I know Joe Biden. Biden's a trustworthy guy. There are also a bunch of things in the COVID relief bill a lot of Republicans have already been for, like the child tax credit and other things. The Republican Party is just incredibly divided in a way that's different than I've ever seen. They've always been divided over ideology. But now it's in every family. And so I just think the Republicans have the potential to go along. And if they don't, then finally maybe Joe Manchin and some of the moderates who don't like the filibuster or want to keep it, they'll be willing to vote to end it.
Tim Alberto, what about a guy like Mike Rounds? You've covered Mike Rounds. I've covered him as both governor and senator. We know he is sort of he's moderate in tone. He may be conservative in ideology, he's moderate in tone. I can tell that he's
probably more of those Republican senators than many of us realize. And I think one of Joe Biden's sort of unique gifts here, stepping into this role as president at a time like this, is that he knows not just how many there are, but who those individuals are, and he knows sort of which buttons to push and when to push them and then when to sort of back off. And keep in mind, you know, Joe Biden was in a similar position 12 years ago as vice president incoming in the Obama administration, and there was some belief that with the stimulus package that was pushed through very hastily without any Republican votes, that was a tactical mistake, that in some ways it sort of poisoned the well with certain Republicans on the Hill who, had they taken a little bit more time, would have been willing to sign on to that deal. So I think that memory still haunts Biden a little bit, and I think that he is going to want to give some of these folks, like a Mike Rounds, he's going to want to give them a little bit more time, make sure that he gives them every opportunity to say yes before he has to move forward without them.
Andrew.
Well, that's a big question, because Harry Reid and Mitch McConnell never even talked to each other. It was so toxic up there. And, you know, a quarter of the Senate has changed in just the 4 years since Joe Biden was given his fond farewell from the Senate to, you know, to leave as vice president. So a lot has changed there, and Schumer doesn't have those muscles. He knows the Senate, he knows the rules as well as Mitch McConnell does, but they have not worked together. And so this is new memory that they have to learn.
We shall see, and new scars.
How does the minimum wage worker benefit getting $15 an hour? Take into consideration that they will be placed in a higher tax bracket and that consumer products will go up. Where is the benefit to the minimum wage workers? I mean, all commodities, all consumer products are going to rise at $15 an hour, minimum wage. All consumer products will. Clothing, groceries, fast food, pizza, whatever you can think of, going to go up. You don't benefit. If you don't love America, leave. And don't let the door hit you in the ass.